The Fall of Nineveh, a turning point in ancient history. Welcome to today's lecture on one of the most dramatic events in ancient history, the fall of Nineveh, the capital of the Assyrian Empire in 612 BC. This event marks the end of one of the most powerful empires of the ancient world and is often seen as the beginning of the rise of the Babylonian Empire. Today we'll explore the causes of the siege, the key players involved, and the military tactics that ultimately led to Nineveh's downfall. The Assyrian Empire at its height. To understand the significance of the fall of Nineveh, it's crucial to first grasp the might of the Assyrian Empire. At its peak, Assyria controlled much of the ancient Near East. It was known for its ruthless military tactics, its vast network of roads, and its advanced siege technology. Nineveh, the capital, was a symbol of that power. It was fortified by massive walls, some of which were over 30 feet high, with defenses that had been thought impregnable. However, by 612 BC, things had begun to change. The Assyrian Empire was facing internal strife and growing external threats. The people of Assyria had become overextended, and their brutal methods of conquest were now beginning to catch up with them. The rising coalition, Babylonians, Medes, and Scythians. The downfall of Nineveh wasn't the work of a single enemy, but rather a coalition of forces united by common cause to overthrow the Assyrian Empire. The main players were the Babylonians, led by Nabopolassar, who had long chafed under Assyrian domination. Nabopolassar sought to establish a new power center in Mesopotamia and gain independence for his people. The Medes, led by Cyaxares, were traditional rivals of Assyria. The Medes had suffered greatly at the hands of the Assyrians, and this provided them with both the motivation and the tactical experience needed to join the conflict. The Scythians, known for their fierce and nomadic lifestyle, were brought in as mercenaries. While their role is often seen as more disruptive than strategically cohesive, they added an unpredictable element to the coalition's forces. Together, these groups formed a strong opposition force, each with its own reason to see the Assyrian Empire crumble. Their unity, despite their different motivations, made them a formidable enemy. The Siege of Nineveh, a multi-phased attack. The Siege of Nineveh was not a single event, but a drawn-out series of military actions that took place over several months. The main strategy of the coalition was to surround the city, cut off its supply lines, and wear down its defenders both physically and mentally. Let's break down the key phases of the siege, initial skirmishes, and blockade. In the early stages of the siege, the coalition forces cut off Nineveh's trade routes and supply lines. The Babylonians worked from the south, attacking the gates of the city and establishing a blockade. The Medes approached from the east, harrying the Assyrians with their cavalry and raiding their outlying territories. The Scythians focused on disrupting communication and any reinforcements from other regions. This multifaceted attack severely weakened the Assyrian ability to respond. Siege towers and battering rams. As the siege intensified, the coalition forces began using siege technologies. The Medes, who were skilled in siegecraft, brought in massive siege towers. These towering structures, sometimes as high as 30 feet, were wheeled toward the city walls, allowing soldiers to scale them and attack the defenders from above. At the same time, battering rams were used to break down the gates, one of the most critical points of entry into Nineveh. Breach in the walls. By late summer of 612 BC, the combined pressure from these siege technologies, along with the worsening internal conditions of the city, began to show results. The Assyrian defenses, despite being formidable, began to crack. A breach in the walls occurred, likely due to a combination of undermining techniques and direct assaults on weakened points. The Medes, with their expert siege tactics, were among the first to enter the city through this breach. Internal collapse and starvation. While the external siege was taking place, the situation inside Nineveh was deteriorating. The defenders, once proud and confident, were suffering from extreme starvation and disease. The food supply was running out as the city was cut off, and the water supply from the Tigris River was compromised by the battle damage. Reports from that time suggest that morale was at an all-time low. The Assyrian king, Sinsharishkun, who was trapped inside Nineveh, had no choice but to face the inevitable. There are historical accounts of the Assyrians attempting to break through the siege by sending out small raiding parties, but these efforts were unsuccessful due to the overwhelming numbers and coordination of the coalition forces. The final assault and the fall of Nineveh. Once the breach in the walls was made, the fate of Nineveh was sealed. The Medes were the first to enter through the gap, followed by the Babylonians. The Scythians, who had contributed by harrying the Assyrians throughout the siege, poured into the city and caused chaos. The streets of Nineveh, once vibrant and proud, became a battlefield. The Assyrian defenders, though fierce, were now demoralized, starving, and sick. The Assyrian immortals, the elite troops who had once struck fear into their enemies, fought valiantly but could not stop the onslaught. The royal palace was looted, and temples dedicated to Assyrian gods were desecrated. Sinsharishkun, the king of Assyria, is believed to have died during the final stages of the battle, though his exact fate remains unclear. By the end of the battle, Nineveh was in ruins. Looting and destruction followed, with the invading forces pillaging the city and burning down the great temple of Ishtar. The mighty Assyrian capital, which had once controlled vast swaths of territory, was reduced to rubble. Aftermath. The end of the Assyrian Empire. The fall of Nineveh marked the end of the Assyrian Empire. While some remnants of Assyrian forces would continue to resist in isolated pockets for a time, the power of Assyria was irrevocably broken. The Babylonian Empire under Nabopolassar's son Nebuchadnezzar II began to rise in power and would go on to dominate much of the Near East in the years that followed. The Medes also solidified their influence, creating their own empire, while the Scythians, after wreaking havoc, largely disappeared from historical records. Conclusion: the legacy of Nineveh. The fall of Nineveh remains one of the most significant events in ancient history. It marks not only the collapse of one of the greatest empires of the ancient world, but also the transition of power in the ancient Near East. The destruction of Nineveh serves as a reminder of the volatility of empire building. No matter how mighty an empire may be, it can be brought down by a combination of strategic alliances, internal weaknesses, and the relentless pressures of warfare. Thank you for joining me in this exploration of the fall of Nineveh, a pivotal moment in the history of the ancient world. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more content. Want to see more? Click on one of the videos on your screen now and join our community. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for being here. Your support means everything. Until next time, take care and stay curious.